Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast. I am your host, Rico Muhammad. We're being joined by my co-host up and on board with me, Mr. Chuck Snow. I'm just trying to make sure that we are going live. Yes, we are live on Instagram as well. So if you want to join the conversation, you can. All you have to do is type into the comment section. We'll see you and we'll try to weave your comments into the show as we go. If you would do us a huge favor, please like, share, and subscribe to the show. Helps gets us out to a bigger and broader algorithm and helps spread the word about the show. So if you guys could do that one huge favor for us, we greatly appreciate it. It doesn't cost you one thing, but it helps us out tremendously. Chuck, how are you this week?
We're doing great. I had a little problem in my eye, but went to the doctor yesterday and got a clean bill of health. I'm back on the, I can fly in an airplane now. I just have to wait till next Monday to go to the gym. So I'm all good.
Good deal. Good deal. So we got a clean bill of health there.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's all good. And kind of likewise to the trucking market, things seem to be trending towards the positive. To kind of segue into this week's fuel report, we're showing that the national U.S. average for diesel fuel has continued to drop since last week. It dropped by 6 cents per gallon. So we're showing a national average of $3.61 per average gallon right now, which is always a really, really good thing. When fuel is one of your highest expenses out here, it helps to have that that expense kind of going down on its own, and you don't have to do very much to take advantage of that, other than taking your foot off that, lifting that right foot a little bit and taking it easy on that gas pedal or the fuel pedal, I should say.
Yeah. Now I gotta say, Rico, the up in Canada, it's not looking. It's pretty shaky up here.
Is that right?
Fuel's down a bit, but freight rates are horrible. Volume is horrible both ways. It's a mess. It's a perfect storm. Guys are closing up. People are going bankrupt. You know, long established motor carriers are closing up and going broke, and banks are calling loans. It's pretty rough up here.
Man, I hate to hear that. I also wanted to jump into one other thing really quickly, and I'm hoping that I'm jumping between screens. I'm on my iPad. I'm not at home on my desktop. So I'm hoping that I'm coming through there.
Clear as a bell, Rico.
Well, my dang on technology is not wanting to cooperate with me. I was trying to get us some information from DAT to let us know how to kind of tell us how the freight has been performing, because we didn't get a chance to do that last week as well. But my DAT is not, for some reason, it is not functioning.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? Let's move on. And I think we should this is our last show of the year, so I think we should just maybe do a little bit of a synopsis of what we think are the best things and the worst things that happened this year.
Yeah. Man, maybe the best thing and the worst thing might be the same thing.
You never know.
I tell you, for some it may be the worst thing. For some others, it may be the best. But I think, in my honest estimation, real quickly, as a year-end wrap up, I am no real big supporter of this current administration. I'll say that we try not to get political on the show, but I'm not really a huge political fan as far as our current administration goes. However, I give credit where credit is due. The nomination that he has made of our current transportation secretary, and I think he is the most consequential transportation secretary that we have ever had, especially since my time in this industry.
I'm with you 100% on that one. Sean Duffy is a breath of fresh air. And, you know, I'm not crazy about a lot of the stuff with your administration either. However, sometimes they do some good things.
And I'll give credit where credit is due on that front.
Yeah.
And so I definitely want to tip my hat. I think that we were saying good things and best things and worst things. One of the best things I think that has happened is that we actually got someone in that position that actually gives a damn,
Yes.
and it's taking time to kind of hear and realize what problems that are there, and diagnosing those problems and actually speaking to them, and being very proactive in trying to address some problems and trying to address them quickly. So I definitely give tip my hat off to that, because we were sitting here scratching our heads at this freight market for the past 3-4 years, wondering when is the tide going to turn? When is the tide going to turn? And I don't think that we kind of fully understood how we were honeycombed with so many non-domiciled and people that were not qualified to actually be driving trucks.
I totally agree. We have it up in Canada as well. They've up in Canada, in Ontario, anyways. They have closed up. I'm going to say probably 75 schools,
Wow.
and they were just turning people out that didn't know how to drive. And I've been thinking about this. I honestly think in my heart and I hate to throw blame, but we have to. That's what we do sometimes. If you look way, way back, where do all these problems come from? They all come, I hate to say it, they come from automatic transmissions.
Well, that I'll go a step further, and I'll jump on Craig Fuller's bandwagon. We can lay this solely at the feet of the ATA, I think.
You know what? Yes. They kept on saying that there was a driver shortage when there wasn't a driver shortage. There was a money shortage. And you've heard me go on about it for 10 years almost, Rico. I've always said that.
And well, not only that, not only was it a money shortage, but also, these guys, they were the ones that were saying, hey, since we have this driver shortage, we need to lower the barrier of entry. We need to get it down low enough to where it's easier for people to get into the industry. We need to get, they celebrated all of these things that passed with the non-domiciled and all of that stuff. They actually celebrated those passings. And so a lot of this definitely lies at their feet. And I was listening. Craig Fuller has him and the attorney. There's an attorney that he does a show with. He has a new show that
Right.
he's doing, and he made a very valid point. And I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And he was saying that the reason that the big carriers push this is because the one main component that they can really control is what they pay drivers.
I agree, except for one thing. And I mentioned this the other day on social media. So you pay a driver, you're supposed to pay a driver, let's just say close to $100,000 a year for a seasoned professional. Okay.
Right.
So you get somebody for half of that. Okay. They're 50,000. Let's just say
Right.
for number's sake. But that individual beats the hell out of your equipment and smashes your trucks. We've all seen it. Okay.
Yep.
We've seen more stupid stuff in the last few years than we've seen our whole lives, like crazy stuff. How is this a savings? I can budget my labor. I know that from running a trucking company. I knew if I paid a driver $1 a mile, which I paid at one point for my truck drivers, and that man ran $125,000 a year, I knew I had $125,000 a year wage plus 33% was the burden cost, unemployment, Canada pension, all that stuff. But if I send some inexperienced person out in a truck, number one, I don't know how much damage the guy or girl's going to do.
I think that one of the things that the bigger fleets have problems with is their culture. I think there's a real culture problem because they have this is not nothing new. They pretty much have over 100% turnover ratio. So meaning however many drivers they bring in, they cycle right through them. So, and it's a problem of retention. And why is there a retention problem? Well, people don't want to put up with the treatment that they're receiving at whatever carrier that they're with.
Yes.
And so I think that, and that's why I say there's a cultural problem, because some of this thing, you got to solve it from the inside and none of the people, I think from a standpoint of pay or home time or different things like that, I think that these are problems that can be solved, but I don't know if the want to is there on the end of some fleets.
Well, I will say, as far as I know, JB Hunt, and I'll say their name on the air, they had this issue 30 years ago with, they were having a hell of a time when after deregulation and they expanded and they were running trucks all over the place. They had a team of guys apparently flying all over the country, picking up abandoned trucks because drivers would get tipped. They were coming, some of them were getting home once a year. And now they've changed. They don't do open board. If they're a contract carrier, basically, you're doing one thing quite often, and they put a stop to it, and they've turned their company around. They used to be made fun of, like another company we know of,
Right.
And they hire professionals, and I see their trucks on the road, and they're driven professionally. I don't see any hot dogging out there from that company.
Right. Right.
So they've got the answer. They're making money. And I can't see how the other companies can be profitable with all these damages and lawsuits.
It's funny you say that. Just yesterday, I saw a guy pull into a shipper where I was at. Brand new Volvo, looks like the brand new model, and
Right.
Man, pretty truck until I seen the passenger side, and the whole passenger side fender was being held together by duct tape.
That- you know, I've always said you pay for recruitment or you pay for retention, and retention is a whole lot cheaper.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I kind of gave what I feel like is the one of the highlights of the year. What about yourself, Chuck?
I would have to say this administration, their help to the trucking industry that so badly needed it, that would be the greatest thing that has happened this year. And I think because of the administration, the other thing is we're starting to see a turnaround.
So
Early.
I was looking at a story as well before we came on, and it was dealing with brokers.
Right.
It was dealing with the man. I don't want to misspeak. I want to see if I can pull it up here real quickly. But it has to deal with the bond for brokers.
I know all about that one because being a broker, we had a bond. And
so apparently there's 30 days to comply. FMCSA details truck broker trustee purge. New FMCSA guidance mandates brokers using ineligible trust providers must secure a compliant replacement within 30-day windows or face immediate suspension.
I like it. You know what? I think it's going to keep some of the riffraff out. It's going to make it more equitable for everybody. It's high time they did this and got some of those crooks out of here.
So yeah, I've been noticing. I had to when things got rough for myself. I had to start back factoring for a little while, and one of the things that I noticed with my factoring company is that they were telling me before you pull any load, even though we may have approved someone previously, run that through. They have a credit check thing on their website where you can just put in the MC number of said broker or whatever and run it through and make sure that they still have good credit. And that thing, I tell you, there have been a few companies that I've put in that I've had previous approvals from, and they come back declined.
Doesn't surprise me.
I mean, really quickly. And that is, and I have one broker right now that I'm still kind of chasing down. We're coming up on about 70 days. We're getting close, but they claim that the check has been mailed. They had a check number and all that stuff, but so we shall see. But they're coming up really close on that 70-day benchmark there. But definitely being on top of the credit worthiness of brokers is one thing that going into the new year, especially with this new mandate, I think it'll help clear out some of the bad actors. But we still have to do our due diligence as well on our end.
You know, Rico, I have to, and I'll say it publicly, I am not a fan of factoring. I think if we look at all the problems we've had in our industry, one of them is undocumented drivers without
Right.
training that are going up and down the road has been a huge issue. The other problem is factoring has ruined our industry because people were able to get into the trucking industry with no money.
Yep.
And the big problem is you cannot afford, especially now because interest rates are a little higher than they were at one point. In most cases, truckers cannot afford to be paying the amount of interest that they are on factoring. If you look at it, if you think if 2%, if you think it's just 2%, it's 2% a month. There's 12
Yeah, you
months.
gotta know, you gotta understand how that interest is calculated.
Exactly. You're close to 24%. That's what household finance used to charge people.
Right.
Okay. It's too much money. You can't afford to be paying 24%. Rico, we know what the numbers look like in trucking. They're lucky to break even.
Right.
Making 5% is fantastic. How the heck can you pay 24% when you're making 5% annually? You know, there's a 19% loss there.
Exactly. That's one of the things. Like I say, you try to get in. If you have to do it, you try to limit it as much as you can.
Right. And the good thing, I will say, kudos to the factoring companies. At least they're doing a great job in most cases vetting the bad suppliers, whether they're brokers or whether they're direct customers. They have got great credit intel. And I will give them credit for that. But you can buy that intel on your own.
Absolutely. Russell makes a great point. Don't forget, predatory truck leasing are unsuspecting owner operators. The thing about most truck leases, unfortunately, they are set up for you to fail. Unfortunately, they are set up for you to fail, and you become a huge tax write-off to a lot of. Now, there are some people out there, there are some companies out there that have good truck leasing programs, but those are few and far between. Chuck, anything you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, you have to ask the questions, and I think, and you're getting into a legal contract that's been written by lawyers. So, for God's sakes, if anybody out there is thinking about one of these leasing deals, take the contract to a lawyer and get independent legal advice before you sign anything. Because in most cases, what happens is, and I've seen it, one of our listeners I remember went through a hell of a time. He paid off a truck. He had a couple of payments owing, and they wouldn't give him the truck. They wouldn't give him titles of the truck. And that's what you have to be careful of. You're paying for something you're not getting. Well, Rico, your sound went.
Yeah, I think my microphone just died on me.
Okay.
So I wanted to say, and I also wanted to kind of follow up on that point as well, is not necessarily on the truck leasing part, but one thing that I hope that we don't take over into the new year is I hope that a lot of people, we talk about predatory truck leasing and stuff of that nature, but also I have to say this. I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. I hope that people learn that don't go out and buy courses from internet gurus telling you that they're going to give you the secret sauce to learn how to become a millionaire in trucking. There is no such thing.
No.
Most people, this industry is very tough. It will chew you up and spit you out. And you better be careful about who you deal with when it comes to someone that's supposed to be teaching you something. Because 9 times out of 10, you need to be vetting those people that say that they know all there is to know, and you can make $1 million with a box truck or got a trucking company and whatever it is. You need to watch who it is that you're dealing with. Make sure that you vet them, and don't just take these fancy promos that they come up with rented cars and rented houses and everything else that they're showing you, and all the stuff that they may be showing you. If you actually meet them in person, they may be living in a very lavish lifestyle, but they probably have been bankrolling that lifestyle off of the course money that people have.
Damn right. They're not. They are not making it in trucking. You know, you and I have been in it for years. It is if you're lucky, you can make a living if you're lucky. And you are not going to get rich overnight. There is no such thing. If you're willing to, and you're young enough to give it 40 years, you could get rich. Well, here's one of our listeners. We have not heard much from Secretary Sean Duffy about predatory truck leasing and going after some of these mega carrier crooks. I agree totally, but I think you will. I think we have to give Sean Duffy some time. He can only put out one fire at a time.
Well, we got so much stuff there. There is this thing that they are talking about trying to do with the bringing a new law enforcement agency in under Homeland Security, that they're supposed to be starting to try to help fight this fraud issue, because that is another huge issue that is facing the community. Is that this fraud has gotten really super out of hand, and we have people outside of the country that are organized. You got very organized crime syndicates from around the world that have found the weak links within our industry, and they are exploiting them to the hilt. And you got not only shippers losing loads, you got carriers getting trucks stolen, just outright, trailers and everything full of loads outright stolen. It has become a huge issue, and luckily, hopefully none of our people have experienced that, but it has exploded over the past couple of years within the industry.
Rico, I have experienced it, okay? And I have to tell you, these guys are so slick. They put the Hollywood's A-listers to shame. They're that good at acting. And they have it down. It's like you're part of a movie script. I'm not joking. When they have it all, and it's so well orchestrated that you don't even realize what they're doing until it's too late.
Right. So I'm hoping that that they get this approval, but there needs to be there has to be government intervention on this part, because it's from everything that I've heard and seen, it's hard to even get any kind of law enforcement to even give a damn about what's going on as far as getting something done about the whole issue of freight being stolen. Even when it comes to the rail lines, I mean, it's become really crazy. It's not like the old days where it was just something that you might hear of every now and again. This thing has become, and even with all of the different advents of the highways and everything else that you try to do to try to help curtail some of this stuff, it is still a huge problem.
Yeah, we years ago, very seldom heard of a freight theft, unless it was something like alcohol or something like that. That was a little bit different, but because they've got to be able to have a market for it, which everybody, especially in those days, everybody drank. And now that a lot of people choose not to, but still, alcohol is still a target. There's a huge market for it. But now the cops, the law enforcement, and we used to have, unfortunately, he's passed away. We had that private investigator, Rick Paul, who was a wonderful guest. May rest in peace. And Rick would tell us about how complex these these freight thefts and frauds were, and that there weren't hardly enough policemen to enforce the law or even investigate. There were so many more crimes than there were people available to solve them.
Right. We gotta get this thing. Hopefully they get this approved for the new law enforcement agency, because they definitely need some help in trying to curtail some of this stuff. Hopefully Secretary Duffy also gets some more help for enforcement within the one thing at a time, definitely, but we definitely need more manpower to help enforce some of the stuff in the FMCSA. As far as vehicle maintenance is another issue that they say 1 out of 4 trucks ain't on the road aren't worthy of being on the road.
That's pretty scary. And that's got to be solved immediately, because carnage, it's gotten dangerous on those roads now.
Yes.
It never used to be. We got to bring it back. This was an industry that was so highly regulated, and we threw all the regulations out. And it's kind of like taking a teenage kid that's 14 years old and giving him a car and giving him a wad of cash and telling him go have a good time. That's really what we've done.
Unfortunately, gave him a car and a bottle of whiskey to go along with it.
And a wad of cash. It's not going to end well. And
right.
either, and this isn't ending well right now. We've all suffered because of fraud somewhere along the line. Even if you haven't suffered directly, you're suffering indirectly because somebody's paying for all this fraud.
So I'm hoping that I'm optimistic about the new year going in. I'm hoping that freight volumes have been on the decrease, but I'm hoping that with the capacity also decrease, that it's going to kind of balance out. I have anecdotally have witnessed myself within my own operation. I've seen rates have continued to kind of rise over the past few months, ever since the enforcements of the different regulations have been actually being enforced. I'm definitely noticing that there's a lot more. I'm getting a lot more, I guess what I would say, interaction from brokers on the spot market when I'm on the spot market, as far as them reaching out. Before, when I was on the spot market, you would have to call the brokers or they would post their price and there was no negotiating at all. This is the price that we're going to pay for this load. Either you take it or leave it. And, that was definitely, running your company on those paper thin margins like we were talking about before. It gets really, really tough in a hurry. And a lot of times, even when the major carriers were out there advertising that publicly traded companies, that they were moving for every load that they moved, they was losing money.
Yeah. And you know what? That's still going on with the carriers a lot of times. And that's why a lot of the mid and large size carriers are sizing their fleets down or shutting it down. And I think your small carriers and smaller carriers, they're a lot more nimble. And I think their operating cost is much lower. And that's making a big difference. And that's why you're seeing freight the much larger carrier couldn't do, because they've got these layers of hierarchy. I sent something to you last week about a company, and when you looked at the numbers, and this is a large company of 400 trucks, they're running those trucks at just over $2 a mile.
Jeez Louise.
And when you think of, they're running 400 trucks, so that they've got a safety manager and they got a director of safety and all these other people. They all have to get paid. So $2 a mile doesn't go far.
Right. And that speaks to another issue as well. When you're running on those bad margins, we just talked about trucks being unworthy of being on the road, but when something has to give. When you're operating at such thin margins, you don't have enough money to go around to take care of everything that needs to be taken care of. And there's only so long that you can continue to run that way before it manifests itself in some form or fashion. So that's, hopefully going into the new year, I'm cautiously optimistic that we will continue to have kind of a little bit of a course correction, that the market is starting to kind of correct itself, and that we get some of these bad actors out of here and out of the way. Hopefully we kind of get our hands wrapped around this whole fraud issue, and hopefully peace and prosperity is what we're headed into for 2026.
Well, your mouth to God's ears, my grandmother always told me. It's funny. It's with a heavy hand of the government that this is getting straightened out. And I think the same thing is going to be with maintenance as well. You cannot, in 2025, 2026, especially, cannot be running unsafe equipment up and down the road. It just can't be done. Personally, I'm not a big fan of break week and all this other stuff. Break week is every week.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I hear,
and then you advertise when you're going to be doing it, so everybody knows. Okay, well, either I'm going to take that week off, or I'm going to go ahead and get this break job done.
As soon as the brakes are going, you get them done. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like, I remember once getting into an argument with one of my business associates over tires, because we had a set of tires on a trailer on a reefer going to California. And he said, we can get one more trip out of these tires. And I flipped. I said, no, we're not getting another trip. The tires are getting changed right now because it's too costly to be changing them on the road. But he grew up in a family trucking business where that's what they did. But I don't do that. You know, you see something's wearing, you fix it. And if you can't afford to fix it, you park it.
Yep. Yep. Chuck, do you want to take a look at that comment there? And
I don't see it over here.
You don't see it on that end?
No, go ahead.
Okay, let me hold on a second. Let me.
Yeah, you know what? This is regarding the trucker strike in Canada. You know what? I'm not a fan of that. When everybody during COVID went to Ottawa and protested the COVID restrictions, the COVID. I don't want to get into that on this show. That's a real personal thing, a political thing, very political. And it's an area that I don't want to bring our show into. I have my own personal opinion about the whole thing, which I'm not going to. I think Rico and I have worked really hard to keep this as apolitical as we can. Sometimes we have to get political, but I'm not. This is too messy a thing to get into on this show. I have too much respect for the amount of work you especially have put into it, and I put a lot into it. So we're not going there. But thank you for asking me about it. Maybe one day over a cup of coffee, I'd love to tell you my perspective.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, I guess we're going to kind of get ready to wrap it up on that note.
Yes.
Where do you, before we get out of here, anything you want to say before, going into the new year, anything you want to leave listeners with?
Yeah, I want to, first of all, I want to take a minute just to thank everybody. I want to thank you, thank all of our listeners, our supporters, for everything everybody does, and in your daily lives, driving those trucks on these roads. It's dangerous as hell, and you're doing it. A lot of people like you, Rico, are out right now, the night before Christmas, out there pounding pavement, making sure kids get their toys and people get their turkeys and everything else. And I just want to thank everybody, and I want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a happy, healthy, and prosperous and safe 2026.
Absolutely. Like as you said earlier, from your mouth to God's ears. So, in wrapping up, I also want to echo those sentiments. I wish everybody out there happy holidays. Hopefully everything will be, like I said, hopefully the tide is turning for us. We are starting to see maybe a little bit of the tide turning, and we're going back into, I don't want to say business as usual, but hopefully business improving and business getting back to a situation where we can actually forecast and make better decisions and actually be able to make better money than what we have been seeing over the past 3 years, because it has been a very, very tough 3 years. And hopefully with everything that's coming down that I have been seeing, hopefully this signals a sign of return back to some kind of prosperity for the trucking industry.
I agree, and the trucking industry can use a break. They really can. They've had a long. It's been the longest freight recession and the worst freight recession I have ever seen in my 51 years.
Absolutely. So with that being said, we want you guys. Chuck, we'll give you a break this week. We don't want nobody wearing you out. We want to let you enjoy the holidays and enjoy the new year. But with that being said, want everyone out there to continue to stay safe, stay healthy, stay profitable. Most important thing. Let's try to our best to keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise. And God willing, we'll talk at you guys next year.
Next year, yes. We won't be broadcasting next week, ladies and gentlemen, but we'll see you beginning of the year. And with that, Rico, I'll let you back her in the hole for another 2 weeks.
Yes, sir. Well, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, we thank you guys for taking the time out. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you hung out with us. So God bless you and good night. We'll see you guys next year.
We got to dump the air out of those bags before we drop it. God bless everybody. Thank you for all your support, Rico. A very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chuck. Have a good one.
You too. Catch